Just a show of hands. Okay, there are very few people. Now, those who put up your hands, how many of you have actually implemented the user experience design principles when you're creating your WordPress website? Anybody? Okay. So the reason why I'm asking is because user experience design is about making sure you're producing products that are actually very intuitive. They don't only have to be beautiful, but they also have to be intuitive. So you're working on a website, not just for yourself. It's not about taking a WordPress template and just customizing. You need to understand your user, which means that you need to put yourself in the place of the user. So what exactly is user experience design? So simply put, it's about creating user-friendly websites. Now, how do you get to understand the exact website you're supposed to build for a user? That is going to identify their pain points, so the difficulties that you're facing, because you're trying to provide a solution. Now, when you work on a website and the website is not accessible and the user cannot find the information they're looking for easily on that website, it means that you have a problem with the user experience of your website. And that's why it's very important for you to understand user experience design before you start working on your WordPress website. So I'm pretty sure we all have a process when we are working on our website. Who here has built WordPress websites? WordPress website, show of hand, I'm not seeing any hand up. Yeah, I've seen a few hands. So we all have a process. We start with design. So here I'm going to combine user experience design and web design. So we'll start with the design phase. Now in the design phase, we have to understand the user. And how do you understand the user? You need to carry out some research. So you may go out, carry out some surveys, carry out some interviews, even if with just a few of your users, even if it's just 3 of them, then when you get their feedback, you know exactly what you're supposed to work on for the website. Now, before you go to the stage of creating a wireframe, so a wireframe is just simply a sketch of how the website is supposed to look like. Before you get to that, you need to have your sitemap, which means that you need to understand all the pages that you need to be creating on the website. Now, when you have an understanding of the pages you have to create on your website, the next thing you need to do is work on the wireframe, like I earlier mentioned. So you can either use a paper and a pen, or use a digital tool like Figma or Adobe XD, Canva. I'm sure I've heard of Canva before. You can use Photoshop and you come up with a wireframe. So the wireframe is just a sketch, the layout. You're not focused on the typography, the fonts. You're not focused on the colors you're going to be using. You're focused on just the layout, and from there, you can now convert your wireframe to a high fidelity UI design. So in this case, you're going to be incorporating the colors. You've identified the color scheme. You have to have a type scale. You need to create a design system. So your design system is going to contain all the components that you're going to be putting on your website, the buttons, the input controls, and the like. So when you're done with your high fidelity UI design, the next thing you need to do is to prototype. So this sketch is it's optional. If you're working on the user interface as a user experience designer, then it might be a good idea for you to create a prototype, because if you're going to hand this over to a developer, they will need to see how somebody will move from one page to the next. So if you don't work on a prototype, they will not have that. Now, if I am a web designer, it will be easier for me to work on the prototype, or even if I don't work on the prototype, I can look at the high fidelity mockup and understand exactly what is supposed to be implemented on WordPress. Now, after prototyping, the next thing to do is to go to the development stage. Okay, so this is an example of a high fidelity mockup. I've been talking about Figma, and Figma is a web-based tool and is primarily used by user experience designers, but you can also create presentations, flyers, and the like on Figma. So if you look on the left, we have the wireframe. Like I earlier mentioned, it's just black and white. You're not focused on the colors, you're not focused on the fonts. So if you don't have this, you can still use a paper and a pen to sketch out your layout. Then you will have to convert it into a high fidelity mockup. So this is a sample of a website I worked on, which I converted from. In fact, I went through all the stages until I implemented using WordPress. And this is a high fidelity mockup. So you see here, I've implemented a color. Before getting to this, I have my design system in place, which makes it easy for me to convert it from a simple design into a working WordPress website. So now this is an example of Figma. This is how you prototype. You can see that there is a link from one page to the next. And here this is the home page. And if you want to prototype to go to the About Us page, you just need to, there's something you call a node, you connect it to the next page. And if the prototype is ready, you can share it in the form of a link. And if you're sending it out to the developer or to your clients, they can just go to that link and see how the site will actually look like if it's going to be implemented on WordPress. Now that we've had an understanding of the process, I think it's going to be best for you to understand how you can actually use Figma's best potentials, especially if you want to convert it to a working WordPress website. So Figma has some features. The first feature is the auto layout. You can look on the right, this is the auto layout. So it allows you to add spacing. So generally in CSS, I'm sure we know about padding and margins and the like. So if you want to make sure that it's going to be easier for you to convert your Figma designs to a working WordPress website and to be able to generate code, because with Figma, you can also generate code, then it's best for you to use auto layout and constraints. And before doing this, there are so many tutorials out there. It's not going to take you long for you to understand how to use Figma. So go to the next. Now, the other thing that you want to use are components and styles. So I mentioned the design system. The design system contains buttons, it contains input controls, and that is what is going to make up your components. Now the styles is going to be made up of your typography scale, heading 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6, you have the body. So when you have that in place, imagine if you have worked on like 10 pages. It's going to be easy for you to go back just to the styles created from the beginning or to the components. You make the adjustments, and whatever elements to which you have applied the styles to, it will just automatically update those styles. Okay, now the next is the grid system. I'm pretty sure we are aware of our grid system. We have the 12-column grid for desktop, we have the 8-4 for tablets depending on the orientation, and we have the 4 or 2 column grid. So if you want to really maximize layout on Figma, it's best for you to make use of their grid system. They have that feature which makes it easy. So this is an example of the grid system for a website I also work on. I have the 12 column grid, I have ample margins on the design, and the spacing, everything was designed from the beginning before I got into the design. Okay, so I've gone through the phase of designing, we've gone through the phase of understanding the best practices. Now, how do we actually make sure that the designs are replicated on WordPress? The first thing you will need to do is to analyze your design, because you first of all need to make sure that those design systems that you have created on Figma is also translated on WordPress, because I'm pretty sure when you want to customize the theme on WordPress, they have a section where you can set the fonts, set the colors, set the buttons. So that is exactly how you need to do. You need to make sure that you understand the header, because when you start working, after creating your design system on Figma and on WordPress, the next thing you need to do is to work on the header, because they're going to be applied on all the other pages. Those ones are going to be consistent or constant throughout your website. So we have the header, we have the footer, we even have some CTAs that are going to be repeated throughout. So you need to analyze and understand how you're going to start to how you're going to end. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to optimize your images. So if you look on the right, I carried out a little test. So there was a JPEG image. I exported the image, I tried to convert it to AVIF format and WebP format, and realized that it compressed it really small, and I did not lose the quality of the image. So I'm recommending that you're going to use, or you should use, WebP format or AVIF format for images instead of PNG and JPEG, because they are very large, and it makes your website, the loading time is really long. And in order for you to maximize or make sure that your websites are user friendly, you need to make sure that your websites are loading really fast. And another thing that I also recommend is to make sure that you use SVG formats for icons because they are vector formats, and irrespective of how you scale those icons, they will never lose quality. Okay, now we need to now figure out the best website approach. So I'm pretty sure we have some designers here. Do we have some designers here that don't know code at all? Are there any? It's just one. I'm seeing your hand on that. Are you a designer? Okay. So I'm pretty sure you will not want to code, right? And there are different approaches, and all of them have their advantages and disadvantages. So for somebody who is a designer, we'll go with a page builder. For somebody who is versed in coding, PHP and the like, and versed in the WordPress code, they can go for the custom theme development, but I think it's also going to depend on your client. So if your client has the budget enough for you to build a theme from scratch, then you can go for that option. Then we have the hybrid approach, which means incorporating a website or page builder and a little bit of coding or even extensive coding using CSS to make sure that your design is literally replicated on the website with WordPress. Okay, so after you have decided on your approach, the next thing you need to do is to set up your WordPress theme, and now this comes to choosing the theme that you want to use. So are you going to go with a preview theme, or are you going to go with a customized theme? So preview themes, we have so many in the WordPress repository. We have free themes, we have premium themes, so it's going to depend on you. So if you're done with the preview themes, you don't need to stress yourself, or you might still stress yourself though. You need to just go in, customize, fit in the colors, fit in the fonts, change the images, change the content, and you're good to go. But now with the customized version, that is what I'm talking about, creating it on Figma, then converting it to a working website, which means that you need to make sure that the designs are ready before you move into WordPress. So in this case, in this scenario, we're going to be going with a customized approach. Okay, now, after all is done and said, you now need to make sure that you're recreating the design on WordPress, recreating the layout, recreating the style, making sure it looks exactly the same. And I've given some examples of some plugins that might help you to do that. We have WordPress plugins, we have WP Forms for forms. For those who are building e-commerce websites, they can use WooCommerce. And like I mentioned, Figma has the dev mode. And with the dev mode, you need to first of all have a Figma Pro account, which means that you need to subscribe. And with the dev mode, you just need to switch to dev mode, and just like you can inspect using a browser, this is a sample here, just like you can inspect using a browser, it's going to give the developer the ability to be able to generate CSS code that they can just copy and paste. It makes things easy. Now we are done with our designing, we are done with our implementation, and before you actually launch the website, you need to make sure that you test and make sure that your site is optimized. You check the responsiveness, you make sure that it's actually usable. You need to make sure that all the links are actually working and pointing to where they are supposed to point to. You need to make sure that your images are optimized. There are so many optimization tools that you can use. Then you need to also make sure that your site is search engine optimized, so it's SEO ready. We have so many plugins out there. I think the most popular is the Yoast SEO plugin. It allows you to make sure that it makes sure that you are able to customize your site in such a way that your site is SEO ready. Okay, so this is a sample of a site I currently work on. It's called the Louis Jenga Foundation website, and the client wanted me to customize the website, so I needed to build it from scratch. And what I did is I went with Elementor, I invested in Elementor, so I used Elementor as a page builder, and I combined it with some custom CSS. So this is an example of what I was talking about. This is a simple wireframe I worked on all the wireframes for all the pages. Then I converted it to a high fidelity mockup, which is this. So with this, when I sent it to the client, I needed to make sure that everything is going to appear exactly the same on the website. Now, after making sure my designs were ready, the next thing was for me to export the assets. Now, before exporting the assets, I need to make sure that all the layers are named correctly, and there are plugins that can help you do that fast. So I use Rename It plugin, and it also helps. So if you're not the one working on the website, if you're supposed to share it with the developers, you can make sure that you put them within the search that is going to be easy for them to just pick out what they are looking for. Now, this is after I've exported the assets. So a good practice is for you to put them in folders to just keep things organized. We have images folder, icons, videos, logos, illustrations, design system, and mockup. So you just place all your assets inside. Now this is an example. I went with the Elementor Hello theme. It was a plain base and it allowed me to build everything from scratch. I did that in combination with the ACF Advanced Custom Field plugin. So it made it easy for me to really morph the website into how I wanted it to look like. Okay, so now this is an example of me working on the footer with Elementor. Just continue. And this is an example of the dev mode. So this is an example of it with the code on the right. So you see this is showing me here the spacing between this section and this section. So I just needed to either just eyeball it, take the number and apply, or I copy the code from here if I needed to use it. Now this is the website. Feel free to visit the website anytime you want to see how it actually looks. And the main thing I want you to take away is whenever you're working on a website, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the user. You need to think of yourself as a user experience designer. Now I've been working on WordPress. Okay, I've been working on WordPress websites for a while, and as a user experience designer myself, I think that there are some tools that would make it easy for us to be able to integrate this. So maybe blogs, tools, I'm sure we have developers here, so you can work in collaboration with designers to make sure that the design experience is good. Create plugins that if in case you want to implement a design, you just need to generate something and it's imported directly, for example, even using Elementor. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much, Jelisa. And I'm glad that you were able to travel all the way from West Africa to here to just give a presentation. For me, I'm an unexperienced developer, but I've learned something. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think about the costing of these plugins that we have to use in order to convert Figma to a WordPress theme?
The costing of the plugin?
Yeah, how is the costing? At the scale of a relationship to Africa's economy?
Well, in this case, I'm not really sure about the costing. I think it's going to depend because here I was referring to like developers who collaborate. Just like you want to come up with a new plugin, right? You just collaborate with somebody, you come up with a plugin, usually better still a user experience designer, you send it. I think there's going to be a level of approval before it's being published. So I'm not sure about the costing. It will depend on you and the person you're going to work on. I'm not sure about that.
Okay, any other question?
What's the question?
Okay. Any question?
Hello, my name is Ayabari. I have a question about that Figma conversion to HTML or WordPress.
Yeah.
How long does the entire process take? For an experienced developer like yourself.
Well, it would depend on the project. I can work on a UI approximately between 1 to 3 to 5 days before that, depending on if I went through the right processes. Then to convert that now to a working website, approximately, if I'm not going to be distracted, if I'm focusing just on that project, approximately 3 to 4 days. Yeah, so generally, let's say I'm going to give it 2 weeks max. Max, yeah, if you're focused on it.
Okay, any other?
That's
Yes, here's another question here.
Thank you for the good presentation. What I'd like to ask is, at what specific point do you integrate different animations and basically the movements of the site? Because I didn't hear you mention anything about that.
Are you talking about the site itself or on Figma? because you can still do animations on Figma before implementing it on WordPress install.
Yeah, on Figma.
On Figma is when you're designing, so just before you want to share, actually that's the phase of prototyping. So I mentioned interactivity, I was talking just about the basic interactivity. There's actually an advanced one where you add a lot of animations there. So if you're working on a WordPress website, and it depends, if the person really needs it, then you can do that. But if you're intuitive, if you're an intuitive developer or designer, it's going to be easy for you to just add the animations, because usually even when you get to WordPress, you don't start adding the animations immediately. You need to make sure that all your pages are ready, then maybe you need to add animations, because sometimes you can slow the website a little bit, so you need to go to specific parts, and at least that's my process. You go to specific parts, add the animations, and you're good to go.
Are we good? Okay.
Hi, I'm Timothy. I run a blog website. I would just like you to shed more light on SEO and how I could do that myself and just optimize my searches on Google.
Okay, so honestly, my specialty is not SEO, but I know that it's important for you to make sure that your site is SEO ready, so search engine optimized ready. It's ready such that if in case your site is published, it will be able to rank higher. Let me say if you're going on, I don't know, what's your blog?
Mine is thematteropinion.com.
Okay, what's it about? What's it about?
It's a blog website, so I post written content regularly.
Okay, is it just personal or is it news?
Personal.
Okay, personal. So maybe you have some keywords that you want. For example, if somebody does a research on, let's say Google, if they enter, you want your website to appear at the top. Yeah. So that is what search engine optimization is supposed to do. So you would have to maybe take a course. There's so many tutorials online, free. It doesn't have to be paid. So if you want to do it, you can take a course online. You can go to YouTube, Google, find some tutorials that are specific about this. Then you do it yourself. Better still, hire a professional. It's going to make things easier for you. They know exactly what to do. They know about the pointing to specific links and the like. So I think it would be better to go that direction. But if you really, really want to do it yourself, then you have to take up a course to understand it.
Okay. Any other? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Matipase Ramati from Western Shell District. I would like you to help and take me through on how I can host my website. Thank you.
Have you already worked on your website?
Yes, I've tried to go, but the idea of hosting it.
Okay, because there are different options. There are actually free hosting options and there are paid hosting options. So if you want, I think you will have to go for the paid hosting option. There are so many out there. We have shared hosting, we have dedicated hosting. So I don't know, even if I speak, you might not, it's more technical. So I think that you have to have a budget kept for you to host. Get yourself a developer, somebody who is more experienced in this, to help you to make the payment. It's usually online. I'm sure you may have some servers here, so it just depends on the agency. It can be an IT solutions agency. They might be able to do that for you. So you get to them, but you definitely have to have some money. You can pay monthly, you can pay yearly, you can pay, I think even 5 years in advance, depending on their programs. So yeah, I would advise that you get somebody who is actually technical, whose specialty is this, then they're going to handle it for you, but you need to have some money. But if you want to go with a free option, I will not really, except it's not really profitable, you don't want to make any profit, it can also affect your SEO ratings. So I think a paid option is going to be good.
Something small. So some of our sponsors have hosting options, and WordPress.com, Jetpack, they have the best. So the best thing to do is to get there, explain to them what your need is, and they'll give you the best option for your hosting. Currently, there are very many hosting providers, even among us, but you may not get what you want directly from them. So that's why we put the sponsor booths. Get to them, tell them what you need. You'll be sorted.
Okay, thank you. So if you want to connect with me, these are my links. You can check out some of my work on my website, and I have a YouTube channel too with some tutorials on Figma. So if you're interested in learning how to use Figma, then you can go to my YouTube channel, Beyond Design with Jelisa. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Jelisa. Now,